We're here at Cordova High School today to sit down with some students who recently produced a video in support of the recent tragedy at Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida.
Students of Stoneman Douglas High School.
You do not know us, but we support you.
What was the importance of making the video? What message did you want to send?
I think it was like super important. I think just to show that, you know, we care and we are mourning with them, and just to show our utter support for them, super important. You know, I think a big idea that we talked about, you know, like, you know, we're West Coast, they're East Coast. We're in completely different places, but we still share that, you know, support for each other, I think was a big thing that we wanted to show.
We wanted something a little more personal, I think, also than letters, because we wanted to, you know, show kind of like our faces so they can see our eyes and just kind of like let them know with our voices and stuff instead of just with, I mean, paper's great. I've kept letters since I was a kid and stuff, but there's something about, you know, seeing another kid's face and stuff that would be good.
I want to go back to the day the shooting happened. How did it affect you? How did it affect the student body here? What were the discussions going on in school when that happened?
Me and Emily, we filmed like a little short informational video to put on our broadcast just to get fellow Lancers to come to the amphitheater and really show their support for the video that we were filming. And making the poster, we were kind of not expecting as many people that came to the event and showed up. When we got there and we saw hundreds of kids, just bright smiley faces, they were all so eager to be in the video. You know, it really kind of warmed my heart, because seeing other people like me that go to my school caring about this as well. So it really just showed that, you know, as a Lancer family, you know, we care and we support and any other students or faculty members that are going through hard times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I remember talking to Tyler and we were like, oh, like, we don't know if a lot of people are going to come out to this, but I remembered back to the day and the moment it all happened. I didn't even know about it at first, and then I'm hearing people are like talking about it, and I just remember just the environment, everyone totally was feeling it. And I think one of the biggest reasons it really affected us is because I feel like we relate to them so much. You know, they're a regular high school, we're a regular high school. And I remember watching an interview of one of the kids, and he said, you know, like, you hear about these shootings and you never think it's going to happen to your school, and you know, look at us. And we were thinking, like, you know, they're just like us. We're regular teenagers. And I remember talking to Tyler, and I was like, hey, you know, like, I'm seeing it. Everyone's talking about it. It's affected people so much, just seeing that, and it's awful. And it happened. We got out there, and all these people come out showing their support, because it definitely hit them hard.
I think adding on to that, like, this definitely isn't the first kind of like time this has happened, even just in this year. Like, we're 3 months in 2018. That was not the first one, nor was the second, nor was it the third. I think that the reason why this one was so impactful versus all the other ones is because this is basically the straw that broke the camel's back, where like just like too much, and I think like that was the tipping point.
I remember on the day that happened, I saw like all these news notifications on my phone, and I was really in shock that it happened again, because even though it happened on the other side of the country, it really impacts us because it's our generation that it's happening to, and it can happen anywhere, and that's why it's so important to us too.
10 years ago when I was in high school, I was a senior in high school 10 years ago, and this is not even something that was registering in my mind, going to school and being afraid that someone would show up with a gun. I mean, Columbine happened, but it didn't seem to be happening as frequent as it does now. Is that a fear that you all face going to school? Is that something that's constantly on your mind?
I think somewhere like in there it is a fear. However, I also have a lot of trust, like in like the culture of this school especially, where I would hope that there would be no like cause for it to happen.
Kind of hinting at what Emily said earlier, you know, we are a normal school just like all of the other schools that these events have happened at. And sad to say, sometimes I do feel like, you know, what if it just happens today? Because nobody ever knows when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen, or who it might be. So personally, it is kind of a fear sometimes. Not that I expect that it's going to happen, but just the factor that I don't know when or if it could does scare me a little bit sometimes. But kind of like London said, I am really faithful in the culture that we have here at Cordova, that we would all stick together and try to solve any issues before anything would happen.
Yeah, no, I've definitely had, conversations with my friends in class where dude, especially because Cordova is such an open campus too, you never know. I remember talking with my friends the other day, we're like, oh, what if this did happen? What would we do? And we talked about, we would, help teachers and just trying to stick together. That was one big thing. And so yeah, we've definitely gone through the situations in our heads, and sometimes I think about that. I don't think, for me at least, I think living in fear is not the way to go, but I think that ever since we've definitely become more prepared, more on our toes, and it's definitely passed my mind multiple times, and I know a lot of my friends' minds as well.
Definitely, as more and more of these incidents have happened, I myself have had a growing fear of thinking, what if this might happen to us? And I actually want to recall an experience that happened last school year. It happened after school was out. I was at a club, and all of a sudden we had a lockdown, and we heard after time went on, we were hiding under desks. It was after school, and we heard some news about there was a man with a firearm around our school, and I was thinking there's no way he's gonna come to us, right? But then it didn't happen, obviously, because the incident would have been on the news. But I remember I was hiding under the desk with everyone else, and then all of a sudden the back door opened. There were two doors into the classroom, one to the main front one, and one to the back that connects to other classrooms. And the one in the back opened, and when that happened, I thought it was the person that was roaming about, and my heart just dropped. I thought this was it, but it was just other kids, and that's just really frightening, thinking that this could happen really to us.
You just, your senses are heightened. You're in that situation, your heart's pounding, you think something's going to happen, and then, that door opens and you don't know who it is. I can't imagine. It's a terrifying feeling.
Yeah, I felt like my heart just skipped a bunch of I don't know how to say, beats, because it just dropped, and I felt like that was it for all of us, or some of us at least.
And Mr. Krieger, as as a teacher here, how has this affected you? I mean, in your, not just in your day-to-day life here at the school, but thinking about these kids. I mean, oftentimes teachers are saying that these kids feel like your own kids sometimes.
Right, yeah. Actually graduated from this high school, so I'm really connected to it in a lot of ways, and this is my 17th year here, and I've done activities for about 12 years. And for me, it's just, I just feel like I feel the drive to make more relationships and to, kind of create a better bond with the school, and I do that with these kids. I mean, these activities kids are amazing. They always are trying to think of new ways to how can we get our school more together. So it's a driving force, but it is a little bit of a fear too. I do trust our kids. I mean, I've been here for, like I said, 17 years, and so I've gotten to know, I've taught all different levels and stuff, and Cordova's a unique place. I mean, it's just, they are always kind of been kind of a family, and some of our alumni will attest to that too over the years. I mean, every year we have, hundreds of kids come back just to visit teachers and stuff. We do create, I believe, a really good culture here. And I think these kids, I think it's a driving force to actually create more connections. I mean, you hear that all the time today, is this kid wasn't connected, that kid wasn't connected. And I think there's, more of a need for connections now than there ever has been. And as a teacher, I actually, after this event happened, I talked to some kids that maybe I haven't talked to that much in my class. I actually found I'm going to go talk to that kid during, anatomy class today. I don't know if I've ever said more than 10 words to that kid. So, because class of 37, some kids get lost in the shuffle. And I feel like it's just more important today than ever to make more connections with kids than we have been. They're just not a body in a seat. They're a person. Outside of teaching them science or media or leadership or whatever, I think there's more of a connection that needs to happen there just to get to know the kid. They need a place to belong. School's more than just learning. It's definitely a place where you develop as a human, and I think connections are the biggest part of that. So,
unfortunately, oftentimes with these shootings, they stay in the news cycle for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we forget about them. How has the video that you've made contribute to the national discussion about gun violence in schools, and to kind of furthering that discussion to possibly initiate change?
I feel like when we originally created the video, the primary intent was to send it off to the school that the shooting occurred at, and for them to have a reinforced support on the other side of the country to know that we are there for them. But looking at the views that it's received, it's over 1,300, and that's more than we could have possibly imagined. This was like to go to them to show support, but now it's reaching so many people and showing our message as well. So just the fact that it's able to reach out to so many people is honestly quite astounding to me, just how many people are able to pay attention and attach to the message that we're trying to send.
So what's next? I mean, what more can Cordova do to not only show their support for the Parkland High School where this tragedy happened, but to kind of contribute to this discussion about gun violence and safety in schools?
I think part of it's just to keep talking about it, because I wasn't around for it, but when Columbine happened, I read that discussion on that just kept going, and they followed the students who were originally affected all the way to their graduation that year. I think that what needs to happen is that for every single shooting that happens, we need to keep the discussion going, and don't let schools just disappear after tragedies that they've been through.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I agree with London. When the incident happened, when the shootings happened, there's a lot of talk about it, but then after a couple of weeks, it kind of falls off. But this is something that we can't just forget about, and we can't push it off either. This is something that we have to talk about now. This is a recurring problem in our country especially, and it's something that change needs to happen, and we can't just keep pushing it off the discussion. It needs to happen, and something needs to change.
Yeah, kind of adding on to what Francis was saying in London also, a lot of times these things happen and I feel like, it eventually dies down oh, it's just another school shooting, it's just another tragedy that happens. But the fact is that it's not just another school shooting, and it will never be like that. It will never be just another event that's happening. And I think, just keep talking about it, treating it like this is something insane that has happened, because it will always be like that. And if we keep pushing things off, then nothing will ever happen. Yeah.
Agreed with Emily, Francis, and London that this is the event that I feel is really going to change everything. Kind of like London touched on earlier, this was the final straw, the one that everybody is realizing that this is an issue. Before we know it, I feel like this event and everything that's happening with our generation will be in history books, will be something to be remembered, because I do feel like something will change, just because the reinforced message of positivity and safety is so prevalent right now and so significant, and I see it everywhere, especially on our campus too, when any conversation happens about what happened in Florida. So I feel like that's one way that we can definitely keep it alive, just making sure that our students and our fellow peers also feel safe, and that when they're talking about these things, that they're looking for a positive change so that these events don't happen anymore.
And my last question is to you, Mr. Krieger. What's the significance of high school students kind of taking the charge on this, rather than having, people in your generation speaking out against this kind of violence?
I think, and our principal, I think, Dan Anklam, talked a little bit about this to you guys today. This is kind of, I think, a defining thing for your generation. And I think this generation kind of gets shoved to the side. They're on their iPhones all the time. They do video games. They're taking selfies and stuff like that. But there's an amazing group of kids in this generation. And I think they have something to say, and I think we're going to hear it in the next, year or two for sure. So, and I look forward to it. I mean, I've worked with these kids for years, and I love them. And I think they have wonderful brains, wonderful hearts, and I think that's what we're going to see. I think is their brains and their hearts, not their texts and their selfies. That's what defines them, I think, in the media a lot of times. But I think they'll have a voice for themselves, and I think that's just more important that it does come from the kids, because sometimes adults, we get set in our ways. I get set in my ways for sure, and they keep me young, even though they keep me gray. They keep me young. So, but they do that with their ideas, and I just want to see them follow through, and I think they will. So it's gonna be awesome.